Everyone assumes wars are won by destroying armies. But what if the fastest way to weaken a military isn't to attack soldiers at all? What if the real battlefield is hundreds of miles behind the front line, inside oil refineries, power substations, compressor stations, and industrial facilities that most people have never heard of? That's exactly what appears to be happening. Behind the headlines, Ukraine has been quietly transforming its long-range strike campaign. Instead of simply trying to hit the biggest refinery or the largest fuel depot, Ukrainian planners are increasingly focusing on something much more precise: the individual components that are hardest and slowest to replace. It's a subtle change, but it may represent one of the biggest shifts in modern warfare since drones became a dominant weapon. Because the objective is no longer just destruction, it's paralysis. The real question is this: has Ukraine discovered a way to impose costs on Russia that missiles and tanks alone never could? And if so, what does that tell us about the future of industrial warfare? To understand why this matters, we need to go back to how this campaign evolved. When Russia launched its full-scale invasion in February 2022, most attention focused on the front lines. Cities changed hands, armored columns advanced, artillery dominated the battlefield. But as the war settled into a prolonged conflict, both sides realized something important. Modern wars aren't sustained only by soldiers. They're sustained by logistics. Every tank needs fuel. Every aircraft needs refined aviation fuel. Every truck requires diesel. Every missile factory needs electricity. Every military base depends on an enormous industrial system operating hundreds of kilometers away. Destroy that system, and the battlefield begins to change without ever attacking the battlefield itself. Ukraine initially targeted Russian oil depots and refineries primarily because they were valuable economic assets. Russia earns enormous revenue from energy exports. Oil remains one of the financial foundations supporting both the Russian state and its military effort. Damaging refineries therefore served two purposes. It reduced government income while simultaneously disrupting fuel supplies. But there was a problem. Many refineries proved surprisingly resilient. A successful strike could force temporary shutdowns. Yet repairs often began quickly. Operations resumed. Production recovered. The economic pain, while significant, sometimes proved temporary. So Ukrainian planners appear to have asked a different question. Instead of asking, "How do we destroy an entire refinery?" they began asking, "What single component can keep this entire facility offline for months?" That distinction changes everything. And here's where it gets interesting. According to reporting from the Financial Times, Ukrainian engineers, intelligence analysts, and drone operators increasingly work together to identify the most vulnerable parts inside Russian industrial facilities. Rather than simply aiming for storage tanks, which can often be repaired or replaced, they are reportedly studying pipelines, processing towers, chimneys, specialized equipment, and other critical infrastructure whose replacement may take far longer. This is industrial warfare at the component level. Think about a modern automobile factory. You could damage the parking lot, you could destroy the warehouse, or you could destroy the one machine that every production line depends on. The factory might still be standing, but production stops. The same logic appears to be shaping Ukraine's deep strike campaign. President Volodymyr Zelensky has repeatedly emphasized expanding long-range strike capabilities and pursuing what officials describe as systemic attacks against Russia's military and industrial infrastructure. Ukrainian officials have also spoken about restriking facilities after partial repairs, increasing the cumulative disruption. That matters because industrial recovery depends on predictability. Factories cannot operate efficiently if every repair risks another strike days later. The scale of this campaign is also changing. According to analysis cited by the Financial Times, successful Ukrainian strikes on Russian refineries reached record levels earlier this year. Other estimates suggest Russia's refining capacity has been significantly reduced compared with normal operating levels, contributing to fuel shortages and regional restrictions inside Russia. Even where exact figures differ, the broader trend is consistent across multiple analyses. Ukraine's long-range strike campaign has become both larger and more persistent. But this is the critical part. The objective may not actually be to eliminate Russia's oil production altogether. That would likely be unrealistic. Russia possesses one of the world's largest energy industries. Instead, the campaign appears designed to create friction, constant friction. Every damaged refinery increases transportation costs. Every delayed repair strains maintenance crews. Every disrupted fuel shipment complicates military logistics. Every successful strike forces Russia to allocate additional air defense systems hundreds of kilometers away from the front. In military strategy, this is known as imposing costs. And over time, costs accumulate. History offers an interesting comparison. During World War II, Allied bombing campaigns increasingly shifted toward Germany's synthetic fuel industry. Military planners eventually realized that tanks without fuel were often more valuable targets than tanks themselves. Factories producing aviation fuel became strategic priorities. Railway junctions became essential targets. The idea wasn't simply to destroy, it was to interrupt the entire system. Today's drone campaigns may represent a 21st century version of that same concept. Smaller weapons, greater precision, far lower cost, potentially similar strategic effects. Of course, not everyone agrees that this strategy will fundamentally alter the war. One counterargument is straightforward. Russia has enormous industrial depth. It possesses multiple refineries, alternative transportation routes, engineering capacity, and substantial financial resources. Supporters of this view argue that Russia can simply repair damaged facilities faster than Ukraine can destroy them. There's some logic to that argument. Large economies are often resilient. However, recent reporting suggests Ukraine's targeting has evolved precisely because repeated repairs became predictable. Rather than hitting the same visible structures repeatedly, planners increasingly focus on bottlenecks, specialized components, whose replacement takes considerably longer. If accurate, that changes the cost equation. A second counterargument focuses on scale. Russia continues producing oil. Energy exports continue. The economy has not collapsed. That's true. But complete collapse may never have been the objective. Strategic campaigns often succeed by gradually reducing efficiency rather than producing dramatic overnight failures. Think about removing one gear from a watch. The watch still exists, but it no longer keeps time. Industrial systems work in similar ways. A third argument suggests these strikes may simply provoke even larger Russian retaliation. And history certainly shows escalation remains a constant risk. Russia has continued large-scale missile and drone attacks against Ukrainian cities and infrastructure throughout the conflict. Yet Ukraine appears to have concluded that allowing Russia's industrial base to operate without disruption would carry even greater long-term risks. That calculation illustrates one of the harsh realities of modern warfare. Sometimes deterrence depends not on avoiding escalation, but on demonstrating that strategic depth no longer guarantees safety. What few people realize is how much technology has transformed these calculations. Just a decade ago, conducting precision strikes hundreds of kilometers behind enemy lines required expensive cruise missiles. Today, long-range drones can often accomplish similar missions at dramatically lower cost. They fly different routes. They can be produced in larger numbers. And they force defenders to spend far more protecting infrastructure than attackers spend launching the drones. This economic imbalance may become one of the defining military lessons of the decade. A relatively inexpensive drone can force the deployment of sophisticated air defense systems worth millions of dollars. Multiply that hundreds of times, and the economics become increasingly difficult. There's another dimension that often receives less attention: intelligence. A successful strike on a critical industrial component doesn't happen by accident. It requires detailed understanding of engineering layouts, knowledge of production processes, satellite imagery, operational analysis, sometimes years of technical research. According to the Financial Times, Ukrainian planners have reportedly combined engineering expertise with intelligence support to identify the most strategically valuable targets. That suggests future conflicts may increasingly depend on engineers as much as generals. The implications extend far beyond Ukraine and Russia. Military planners around the world are watching closely, because every major industrial nation has similar vulnerabilities: power transformers, natural gas compressor stations, pipeline junctions, electrical substations, control systems, critical manufacturing equipment. Modern economies rely on surprisingly small numbers of highly specialized assets, and many were never designed with drone warfare in mind. This mirrors another historical lesson. The 1973 oil crisis demonstrated how disruptions to energy supplies could reshape global politics without large-scale conventional battles. Today's situation is obviously different, but the underlying principle remains remarkably similar. Energy isn't just another commodity. It's the foundation upon which military power, transportation, manufacturing, and economic stability all depend. Control energy, and you influence everything built upon it. For Russia, this creates difficult choices. Should additional air defense systems protect frontline troops, or defend industrial facilities deep inside the country? Should engineering resources repair damaged refineries, or support military production elsewhere? Every strategic decision involves opportunity costs, and that may ultimately be Ukraine's objective, not forcing one catastrophic failure, but forcing hundreds of expensive decisions simultaneously. For NATO countries, these developments raise equally important questions. How resilient are Western industrial networks? How vulnerable are electrical grids? How many replacement transformers actually exist? How quickly can specialized refinery equipment be manufactured? These are no longer theoretical planning exercises. They are becoming practical national security questions. Perhaps the biggest lesson is that warfare itself continues evolving. For centuries, military strength depended primarily on the number of soldiers, tanks, aircraft, and ships a nation possessed. Today, victory may increasingly depend on something less visible: supply chains, industrial resilience, engineering knowledge, data analysis, and the ability to identify one seemingly insignificant component whose failure can halt an entire strategic system. That's a profound shift. So where does this leave the war? Ukraine's strikes alone are unlikely to determine the outcome. Russia retains enormous resources. The battlefield remains highly contested, and no single campaign guarantees strategic success. But these attacks may suggest that Ukraine has found a way to impose growing economic and logistical pressure far beyond the front lines. Whether that pressure eventually changes political calculations in Moscow remains uncertain. History rarely moves in straight lines. The real question we should be asking isn't whether another refinery will be hit next week. It's whether we've entered a new era in which wars are increasingly decided not by who destroys the most equipment, but by who better understands the hidden machinery that keeps an entire nation functioning. Because if that's true, then the future battlefield isn't just the front line. It's every critical piece of infrastructure that makes modern military power possible. And that lesson won't end with Ukraine. It may define the next generation of conflict. If you enjoyed this analysis, subscribe to Cobalt for more in-depth coverage of the technologies, strategies, and geopolitical shifts shaping modern warfare.